Sean, how do you inspire joy and excitement?
Um, I'm gonna step back a moment. Um, I thought about something Rick said, and I also did a talk at a garden center a while ago, and they had all kinds of natives at this beautiful display at the back. Can we move them to the front? Have they been bad? We're punishing them? Go sit in the corner. If we really want people to see them, don't make it the last thing people are going to see when their cart's already full. I also want to congratulate Jonas for the workshops that you do. I went to a seed cleaning workshop and it was awesome. It was inspiring. It showed people what they can do and how they can do it. I would have liked to have seen more of our profession there. But well done, because that's a great way to outreach. To answer the question, I think I'm a little weird. I think I'm weird. If I let myself go, I think I can be dauntingly enthusiastic, to the point that people start backing away slowly. And I've realized over the last couple of years that the more that I let Sean out of the box, the more I let myself be enthusiastic, the better it is for the issues that I'm trying to get out there, and the better it is, frankly, for my business. Because I mean, we can't do the good that we're doing if we're not making any money. It's got to be good for business as well. Um, I tell people to figure out what you love and then love it openly. Don't be all Canadian, walk into a backyard and think to yourself, oh my God, that's the most amazing oak tree I've ever seen. Yes, I think we can work with this. Thank you. Yes, indeed. No, say it out loud, show people, get enthusiastic about plants. I had a young friend from the Niagara Park School up on the weekend. We went for a hike in the woods. And the number of times they were, I think I was probably starting to unnerve him by the end of it. But we were seeing things like pine sap, which is a neat little microheterotroph. It feeds on mycorrhizae. It leaches from mycorrhizae related to ghost pipe. We've seen all these amazing plants, and if you're enthusiastic about it, and enthusiastic on as many platforms as you can get your paws on and have time to do, which is a challenge, then you can get that word out, and people want to be part of that. To go back to 7 things but one, they don't want to be yelled at. They want to be part of something amazing, and they want to be given hope that they can make a difference. And the more that I can talk to youth, the better. A lot of people in our trade grumble because they can't get good people. There's people don't want to work nowadays. Well, not for you, because you're not doing what they want to do. They're getting into the industry to change the world. They recognize that they can change the world. It's us old farts who often don't. If we want to get good people, we have to be doing the right things and inspiring and doing it enthusiastically, getting out there and doing what everybody here is doing, is being an example and sharing the word about it. So that is basically figure out what you love and love it openly is the message that I would try and get out there.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sean. And I agree that because I do some teaching as well, and it's the young people that want to do this work. They know that it's important work. They just need the opportunity to do it. Rick, how do you bring enthusiasm and joy to what you do?
Well, one of the things, my other hobby besides the gardening is photography. And so I'm always photographing my flowers. I'm extremely active on native plant gardening Facebook groups and so on. And so I'm always sharing pictures of my garden and people get excited. Sean, I know you've seen the pictures of my Canada lily, which is just this magnificent specimen of a plant that keeps getting bigger every year and more flowers. And people actually say, oh, I can't wait till she starts to bloom again. I call her Queen Lily because she's so regal. And she's, people get excited because I'm excited about it. And just like Sean says, you've got to be enthusiastic about what you're doing. Usually at the end of a talk, I'll give to a hort society or something, I'll end up saying, so can you tell them enthusiastic about this? Oh yeah, we can. Because the opening slide on most of my talks is I'm not always talking about native plant gardening. Sometimes I'm asleep. And so that's just who I am and what I do. And I share that enthusiasm. I share my photos. I share what's exciting in my garden for me right now, and others get excited about it as well. So yeah, it's just all about the joy that it brings me, and that joy gets spread.
That's awesome. Thank you. I know I enjoy personally seeing the pictures of your queen lily, and it sent me on a path trying to find that plant for my own garden. It's not an easy one to procure. Jonas, um, how do you inspire joy and excitement?
For me, I get a lot of joy from work. Somebody mentioned before about, working with the youth, talking to the people who are coming into the industry. Perhaps my favorite thing is like, when the bankers and the social workers and the sort of the white collar workers are coming into horticulture. I love that. And I'll anybody who wants, I have a standing, open, you can buy me a coffee and we can talk about what it's like to work in this industry. And I'm totally biased. I do love what we do. So for me, the joy comes from the relationships uh, of all the people that are in it. I love the collaboration, um, and I do love finding out about all the amazing things that plants can do, even the ones that I thought I knew. So I'm still learning, still experimenting and fooling around, trying to grow plants in places they shouldn't be growing. I get a lot of joy out of the idea of infiltrating hardscape, planting plants, not just in the garden, but like, why not on the walls? Why not, in the parking lots? Why not in the walkways? So for me, I know we're losing, like every day there's going to be more pavement than there was yesterday. So we're losing. But I love the idea of like the counter insurgency of like adding plants, or maybe getting it so that it's normal that plants would be included in the hardscape, and that would be how we sort of fight back against it. And so I get an enormous amount of joy just from like dreaming and scheming in the winter about new ways that we can kind of uh, be subversive with plants.
Awesome. Sarah, how do you inspire joy and excitement?
I think passion is really contagious, and I'm around individuals that are entering into the industry all the time, and I think that the number one thing that makes me happy as an educator is when I can see it starting to click with my students, and I can see them wanting to really like get into all of the ecological sides of landscaping. It's just so amazing how exciting it is for everybody involved, and year after year it just, that never gets old for me, and I don't think that ever will get old for me, to see how someone can almost, like, it's like a butterfly, they're completely changing into something that maybe they didn't even think they were going to do when they came into kind of their education system. But I think a lot of students in particular, and young people, are experiencing a lot of like climate anxiety and climate grief. And so the more that you can kind of show them this is something that is very tactile, that is really something that we can start to do. You plant this plant and you get caterpillars on it, is like a very tangible, infectious, happy, action that I think a lot of our students really get excited about, and can also really then start to kind of take that passion elsewhere. And I think that's what is really one of the nicest things to see in the position that I'm in.
Awesome. Thank you. I do love the tangibility of what we do. You can actually see the fruits of your labor. So the next one is, what is one thing you wish people knew more about? And I'll start with Rick.
I think it goes back for me to the whole invasive species thing. Is I wish that people understood the impact that non-native plants can have on our environment, on the ecology. That to me has to be the number one question. But a close number two would be how easy it is to grow native plants. Like Sarah said, when she was young and seeing the native plants doing well with very little maintenance, I think people would go that way. We've got some beautiful, beautiful flowers. If you're just looking for beauty, if you're looking for pollinators in your garden, there's lots of pollen heavy plants that are native. There's all kinds of things, no matter whether you got shade, full sun, dry, wet, we've got the plants for it, and many of them are just as gorgeous as anything you can find from Europe or Asia. So let people know that we've got those plants. They're easy to grow, they're easy to maintain, and those non-native species have a huge negative impact, or can, on the environment. So those are the things that we have to make sure that people know.
Thank you. Jonas, what's the one thing you wish people knew more?
Well, I was thinking about the question of like what I wish I knew more about. So maybe I'll have to give it some thought about other people. As far as other people, I do think that there is a lack of knowledge about native plants generally. That there are I think there's a perception out there that they're not going to do very well. They look weedy. There's not that many choices, and the opposite is the case. I mean, there's so many species. I mean, I think Southern Ontario's got like 300 carrick species or something like that. So there actually is a huge diversity of plants that live in Southern Ontario. So I think there's a lot of preconceived notions out there about, if you just go to the nursery and you only see Liatris or you only see Monarda, but there's actually a ton of plants out there, and there's a lot of ornamental plants that are native, incidentally. And so I think that there's a lot of that people could just embrace as far as learning about what these plants can do and the species. But for me, what I want to learn more about is how do we turn on the tap financially to get more of this climate money directly flowing to the work that we're doing. And I think that that's sort of an open question about how we navigate this sort of new playing field of, call it whatever you want, ecological, horticulture, whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily follow the same structure of having a client and the client's values align with yours, and then you convince them to do a planting that'll give back to the ecosystem. I think there's going to be climate money. I think there's going to be institutional money, municipal money. I just don't know enough about how to turn the tap on, and I would love to do some of that kind of work.
No, it's interesting. Just recently, I did a design for a potential client, and I learned that my client's husband's company will give them money to go towards planting indigenous plants. I was stunned, and I think maybe that's one thing moving forward, that there'll be either tax benefits or municipalities will give you money to plant indigenous plants. I'm hoping, at least. Sarah, did you have?
I think for the general public to acknowledge that having holes in your leaves is not a bad thing would be one thing to think about. Another one of my beefs would be that for the general public, again, to understand that a red maple has green leaves most of the year, I think is another super simple example of one thing that I wish people knew more about.
Sean.
I have trouble answering questions about one thing, if you haven't noticed that already. So thanks, Rick, for taking me how easy it is answer off my plate. So now I can answer only one thing. I wish people in our profession knew that it doesn't matter if folks want eco or not. You asked at the beginning if I'd participated in the symposium before. Yes, I have. And I remember there was a little sort of TED Talks post-interview thing, and the interviewer said, "And what do you do when people don't want eco?" And I went, I give them eco, they just don't know it. If you want to do eco work, people don't know what's native and what isn't native. They don't know that potentilla is native. They don't know that nine bark's native. The general public doesn't know which of the grasses are native. So you can do a garden that does eco. They don't, I mean, they don't need to know that their pavers are permeable. When I talk in my speeches, I say, a good patio, a good permeable patio will add 12% to the value of a home. Any good patio will add 12% to the value of the home, but why not make it permeable? You can do these things whether people want it or not. And the more you do it, and then the more after the fact you promote how eco it is, then more people will come to you for eco and they'll pay more for it because it is a specialty. And I'm not saying rake them over the coals financially or anything, but it would be nice to get closer to paying what we're worth. I think so often we hear people going, "Oh, I'm just a gardener." No, man, we can change the world. We can fix it. We doctors don't know as much about as many things as we have to. We need to start viewing ourselves as more valuable, and then realize that a large portion of the public wants that. And the people who don't want it, who cares? You can still give it to them and still have it be beautiful, and they'll be happy with it. If I ask people if they want a rain garden, they say, "Oh, no, no, no," because they don't know what a rain garden is, so they default to no. If I just put it in the design, they say, "What's that little area there? Ah, that's a rain garden. Well, what's that?" And I go bananas and I get all enthusiastic about it, and they're stoked, they're keen. It is easy to sell eco, whether you're actually selling it or just furtively doing it. So that's something I wish folks could know.
I do the same. That I will often just do a design. I don't even tell them that it's 100% indigenous, whatever. I just go ahead and do it then after the fact. And I agree 100% that as an industry, we undervalue ourselves horribly, I think. The next question, I know Jonas will have a lot to say. I'm going to ask him to try and keep it short, but we'll see. How has ecological referencing shaped your professional navigation? I think they wrote this question just for you, Jonas.
I started out with just regular conventional landscaping business, trying to reimagine it in the context of climate. And I came upon this idea of an ecological reference and started planning some symposiums where we would invite landscape professionals in the audience, but the speakers would be sort of adjacent professionals that would have insight. So we brought in like ecologists to talk about, meadows, or we talk about cliffs or something. And I thought that really sort of expanded my ideas about what we could be doing. And then really, like, who has time for that in the middle of the season, right? Like, you're not going to talk to all of these other people. So I feel like the whole ecological reference thing, it got embedded into not just the design, but also the presentation to the client, like how we would sell it. We'd say, it's a woodland understory, or buildings are cliffs, or something like that, as a way to connect the client to the overall perspective of how we look at their property or the project. And so we kind of started incorporating it into the sales, we incorporated it into the design, and it took a long time for me to work up the bravery, I guess, to actually go into a client's place and sort of put it that way, to sort of present it that way. And we got really good feedback on it. And so we've been doing that basically ever since. And the designers I work with, like, they know when they do a site visit, I'm going to ask them, what's the reference? Like, is it a woodland understory? Like, where are we going with this thing? And that's really helped us to put together palettes of plants for different situations. It also we reorganized the retail part of our business to align with that. I mentioned before just how we align, like we put the plants by reference in the nursery, or in the garden center, so people can find all the different types of plants that grow in the same situation together. So we do that. And really, it's just been a lifelong project to sort of develop this idea of the hardscape plants, which is the buildings are cliffs sort of reference, this cliff Alvar reference that we use for Toronto. And that is an ongoing project. And I just, to me, that's been basically, I guess, my life's work. But in this career, that's what I've been doing, is just trying to build up that palette in the hopes that someday the architects will come and the city of Toronto, officials will come and say, okay, we're ready to cool our city. What should we grow here? And I'll be like, yeah, I've got it all ready to go. We've got the plants ready. You just figure out how to stick them onto a building, and away we go. So that I've just kind of been preparing really for the day that we get the opportunity to be involved at a high level with where these plants are going in sort of untraditional places, so yeah, it's really been defining, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jonas. Rick, do you have a?
I guess for me, I mean, I've been a tree hugger since I was a kid. I started the first ever 4-H ecology club when I was 16. I was involved in lots of environmental things going on while I was in high school. I represented my school at an environmental conference in Sudbury. Um, and then kind of life got in the way. After I left high school, I tried farming for a while. I did a lot of other things, but always in the back of my mind, it was that tree hugger coming through. And so when I finally got this place where I live now and put in the garden, it was always, that environmental background drove how I looked at things in my yard. My book that I put together came out simply because I couldn't find all that information in one place that I needed to be able to grow the gardens that I wanted to grow. And so that was, 5 years of research in addition to my own experience. But really, it's been the environment. My degrees you mentioned earlier, they were all environmental degrees. I was 40 when I went back to school to do that. So I've always just been an environmentalist from day one and been always proud of it.
Thank you, Sean.
I it's such a complex issue. I think we can get buried too easily in it. I think that we need to remember to have fun. I think we need to enjoy the time that we spend with other people and enjoy the time that we spend doing things right. I'm a big fan of Dr. Alan Armitage, and not necessarily terribly native plant-based. He's sort of all plant-based, but he reminds us that we get awfully serious about gardening, and we need to relax about that. Reading anything by him, and as I mentioned, Lorraine's book and Rick's book, these are all ways that we can sort of move forward on things together.
All right, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, there's been some really good answers here so far. I'm like, what am I going to add to the conversation? But I think for me, similar to what Rick had mentioned, I think I've always been that ecologically minded tree hugger person, like right from childhood. I think, growing up on a nursery is helpful in that regards. But I think that shaped, what I chose to study for my undergrad, which then got me into the industry professionally. And I think for me, the ecological world maybe didn't happen until I was maybe even done my undergrad degree, for example, and was starting to practice, and then was really starting to reflect on why did I want to go into design in the first place, or why did I want to become a landscape architect? And really that was because I wanted to make the designs or the sites that I was working on more environmentally, let's say, friendly or sustainable than when maybe I got there from the beginning. And I think that focus changed for me, pretty significantly in my 20s and my 30s when I was starting to think about what what plants are going in, what are they doing, how are they performing, and it really, really changed and became just a mindset now where that's just it is who I am. I'm having, kind of as Sean has mentioned, I'm having the most fun when I can see, caterpillars on plants, or I can see pollinators on plants of things that I, would have made the decision to put that in the garden. That brings me more joy than, a perfectly pristine, whatever that means, landscape that I think that it's that kind of referencing is just, what are we really doing this for? You kind of have to start with your why. And that was my why, is I wanted to make things more ecologically, sound. And I think that is basically shapes everything that I do now, and all of my thinking, all of my reading, all of my research, and now all of my joy, when I can actually see the tangible benefits of having done and put in these plants and how they're performing and how they're doing, it gives me a lot of happiness. So I think that's what continues to navigate me.
Okay, thank you. I have one selfish question. I just want a really quick answer. What's your favorite native plant? And I'll start with Sean.
Oh, why do people keep asking me that? They're all lovely.
Yeah, I know it's a problem.
It varies day to day. My traditional answer is Asclepius. Um, Lately, it's been the sedges in general. Again, I can't pick one thing. I'm not very good at that. I almost have to categorize things. And again, that changes day by day too. Sulfium terebinthinaceum, prairie dock, is spectacular. And I often say that we don't have enough fold in our native plant palette, which is one of the reasons I sometimes use non-native things in my designs. So it's bold. It's very bold. And I'm kind of okay with near natives. So I've been looking a lot at what benefits pollinators as well. And the almost completely unavailable Haas halo hydrangea will be covered in microbees. And it's a near native hydrangea arborescens. And Gina phlox is great for pollinators. 80% more pollinator activity, according to the Mount Cuba Center. And a lovely plant. And then both lovely plants that do things. They're both incredibly fragrant. They both look pretty good in the winter. They both do great things for wildlife. And I mean, today, back to Asclepius. I was out snuffling the marsh milkweed by my pond, and it smells like vanilla and honey. I mean, it's just lovely. And other than the things that we want to eat milkweed, and harkening back to Sarah's comment about the pearly everlasting getting eaten, I have poke milkweed that I looked very hard to get, and last fall it got eaten right to the ground by milkweed tussock moths, or milkweed tiger moth, same thing, little Halloween circus moths. And I was quite worried that I was going to lose that plant. It's back, it's fine. But I today it's marsh milkweed, Asclepius incarnata.
Awesome, thank you. Sarah, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with oak tree, so probably Quercus alba would be my favorite.
So for those of you who know me, I have an oak problem. My son's name is Oak. I have a white oak tattooed on my right arm. I have a red oak tattooed on my left arm. I love oaks. Rick.
I call it the gateway drug to native plant gardening is wild columbine, Aquilegia canadensis. It's beautiful, two colors, hummingbird magnet. It's always got golden digger wasps on it in my garden. In and around that area, there's lots of bees constantly in around the flowers, and it's just very stately. I've got moist loam soil, so it can get 3 feet tall in my garden. But where I used to live on my farm, it was dry, sandy soil, and the plant just grew there wild, native. It would only be about a foot tall and very dainty and pretty, but it'll live in full shade, it'll live in full sun, it'll live where it's moist, it'll live where it's dry. You want to introduce somebody to the native plants, you can't go wrong giving them some seeds from your wild columbine. That's got to be my favorite plant.
You know, it was the wild columbine, I believe you, that was my gateway. I remember as a kid seeing it, being stunned by how beautiful it was, and the flowers really intriguing. Um, yeah, I love that plant too. Jonas, do you have a fave?
I really like these choices already. I'm going to give the most gardener answer I can give, which is the plant that I can't get, which I've never even seen, is the one I'm going to say, which is Carex woodii. Mount Cuba, Sean mentioned Mount Cuba. They tested all these Carexes for which one would be the best suited as a lawn substitute in Carex, and I think they did 20 species. Carex woodii was winning on all these categories, you know, trampling, cutting. What does it? Is it a clumper? Does it grow? And so I tried to get it, couldn't get it. I've been teased, you know, for months and months now that they're going to bring it in. One of my suppliers said he could get it, hasn't come. And I did a iNaturalist just on a whim search, and apparently there's 3 or 4 small populations in Toronto. This is a native plant, which is not, you know, in commercial production. And I was trying to bug Steve Smith to come with me and see if we could find these things and see if there was a few seeds to be had. And then I also got teased by another grower friend of mine who said he had a few, you know, but I never actually got any. So I'm really excited about trying it out as a lawn alternative. And it's just been like this rabbit hole of just trying to get anything, whether it's seed or the plants itself, just anything about this plant from any of the growers. So that's my answer.
All right, thank you. And I guess we're down to the last question. And it's really, do you have any favorite resources that you'd like to share with the audience? You know, it could be a book, a podcast, a webinar, anything that you find you know, important. Sean, we'll start with Sean.
The Master Gardeners of Ontario Facebook page has a lot of information there. So does the Ontario Native Plant Facebook page. Staying in touch with those puts things on my radar that wouldn't otherwise be. My assistant Jamie one day said, "Why do we still have magazines?" Well, I don't know. And then I was reading a magazine and I found all about Botryosphera canker on dogwoods. I wouldn't have found that if I hadn't just been reading the whole magazine. When we open a book, we find things that we don't know we didn't know. I'm loving both about Lorraine's book and Rick's book that I can find out what feeds on what insects are obligate to certain plants, what insects favor certain plants as well. I read Fine Gardening magazine. I think more of us in the profession need to read what the public's reading. It's great that we read trade magazines, assuming that we do, but why are the garden centers not getting in Haas Halo hydrangea that Mount Cuba raved about? Well, because they're not reading the Fine Gardening magazine where the public was told that they should get Haas Halo hydrangea. So I think going outside our comfy envelope is a good way to learn new things. Go join your local garden club. Oh, but they're just home gardeners. They know more than we do sometimes. You'll get speakers that you didn't know you wanted to see. I went to a Master Gardeners meeting in Guelph and we had a speaker all about goldenrods. Well, I already know about goldenrods. What do I want to go see about that for? 350 species of insects feed on goldenrod. Some of them are fascinating. I didn't know I wanted to know that. Go do things that you aren't usually doing. Go visit places digitally, in print, in garden clubs, in meetings that you don't usually go visit. Go to botanical gardens and wander around, and you'll see what you know. And then you go, "What's that?" and learn something new about a plant. So I have a lot of resources that I gravitate towards. And go to the crazy little garden centers run by crazy little gardeners. Go to the native plant nurseries and say, hey, what do you think is cool today? And I when Jonas mentioned Carrick's Woody Eye, I'm trying not to move my fingers as I'm furiously looking it up online. I'm like, ooh, that's nice. So there's always new information to be exposed to. The day in our industry that you don't learn something, that's it. I'm done. There's every day there's new stuff to learn about, and I'm a huge fan. I almost forgot about that of iNaturalist. Thank you, Jonas. I every day I'm looking up new creatures, new plants, new butterflies. Yesterday I got a phantom crane fly, which you practically can't see flying around. It's this black thing that has fuzzy white elbows, and that's all you see is these elbows moving around. Um, so like there's just so many things that we can do that will expand our enthusiasm about what we do on a day-to-day basis. So that when you get up in the morning, it's not just a job. Trudge, 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 work, work, home, sleep. There's so much more that it can be. And we're so lucky in our trade because we have that. Hardly anybody has that. Hardly anybody can look out the window of the truck at the end of the day when you're driving away and go, I did that. We need to appreciate that more. And some of those resources will help you do so.
I agree with everything you said 100%. Rip, do you have some favorite resources?
My screen is blurred in the background, but I've got about 10 feet of bookshelf space behind me here that's dedicated to resources on native plant gardening or nature in general. Um, I mean, Lorraine Johnson introduced me really to the native plant world in some of her early books, and then in her latest one, Rusty Patch book. I would say that Cullen's books on native plants of the Northeast and some of the others, those are awesome resources as well. And Howell Kimmer's book, Breeding Sweetgrass, is an awesome book just to give you a different perspective on things. She's also got one, Gathering Moss, which I read first and really loved that book too. Yeah, there's so many good books out there. I'm really a book person, but I agree with Sean, the native plant gardening Facebook group, and we have so many native plant gardening related Facebook groups that are all local. So I mean, down here, there's Windsor, Essex, there's Relief Chatham, Kent, there's Huron County, there's just dozens of them out there. And these are all awesome resources, if for no other reason, to see what people's questions are, and to provide you with the feel for what's happening in the native plant world for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Jonas.
If you're interested in gardening already or horticulture, and you want to sort of bone up more on the ecology side, there's nothing wrong with just going back to the basics and like reading up on ecology. I studied agroecology at university, and the concepts that I learned there, I still use them today, every day. And adjacent to that, there's a more general theory called complex systems. And the woman who we read back then, I can't remember her name, but there's a few texts out there, and this is more used for general complex problems. So we have like ecology is very complex, and a lot of the science of it is dealing with these systems, but then the complex system stuff is more general. They use it in economics, they use it in all different applications. But I use that kind of thinking every day in my work, whether it's recognizing connections between various components or how they interact, or figuring out what lever points there are and in being able to make a change in something, and trying to figure out what we can do to be strategic about with the limited resources that we have. But if you're just interested in getting plant lists of native plants together, then I would recommend, like for people who are working in the city, check out Larson's book on cliff ecology. It's got great plant lists in it. There's Alvar books out there that have, and you can look up Eco Sites of Ontario, which was produced by like the provincial government, which will help you generate lists depending on what project, where you're working. And the conservation authorities also have like lists depending on where your site is. But to be able to generate lists, I use a lot of the free resources that are out there that were produced by scientists doing inventories in the 80s and 90s.
All right, thank you, Jonas. Sarah, you have a favorite resource?
Yeah, and so many of them have already been mentioned. But like I think like Sean had mentioned, I think I would absolutely quit social media if it wasn't for those two Facebook groups. I love them. I'm on them every single day. I read every single post. I've learned probably more from those Facebook groups than from anything else, which is kind of unbelievable. Another thing that I really like is Rebecca McMackin's newsletter that gets emailed quarterly. She is really amazing. And I feel like it takes me days to read this newsletter because she includes all kinds of links in it. And then I go down a rabbit hole of every single link, and it just completely captures me. I think some other books that haven't been mentioned yet would be Prairie Up, the book from Benjamin Voigt that came out last year, I thought was really good. Garden Revolution by Larry Weiner was really good. Planting in a Post-Wild World by Thomas Rayner and Claudia West was really good. And then from across the pond, Naturalistic Planting Design from Nigel Dunnett was really awesome. So there's a whole bunch of really great books and resources out there, and if you're open to trying to include more ecologically friendly practices in your design, there's lots and lots of resources. It doesn't have to be too overwhelming to kind of dip your toe in this in this era or section of horticulture. I think it's, as Rick had mentioned, it's very contagious. And I think it's gonna, also inspire and bring a lot of joy to you as well. So if you start to kind of go down this area, there's lots to learn. There's more to learn. I learn something new every single day, and I just can't, it's amazing, right? And so I think that's something that is very inspiring. For me, is this kind of allows you to be a lifelong learner, and new books come out all the time. Like I'm reading Rick's book right now as well, flipping through all the pages and flagging the plants that I love. And I just think it's amazing to have these resources available. And many of those books are at your local library, which is also a good thing too. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I think we're all lifelong learners, that there's so much more for us to learn. That's what keeps me motivated. On behalf of the Plant Symposium Committee, I want to thank you for your time. I know it's valuable, and we really do appreciate it. We look forward to building our relationships with you, and I'm hoping that I get to see you in person at a Plant Symposium, or if it has to be virtually. The Plant Symposium is going to be February 4th, 2025 in London, Ontario. If you have the opportunity, please come. Thank you for joining us for this discussion brought to you by the Plant Symposium. We hope you gain valuable insights into how this approach can enhance your professional journey, deepen your appreciation for native plants, and contribute to a more sustainable horticultural practice. We encourage you to explore the resources shared and consider how you can integrate these ideas into your own work. Remember, the journey towards sustainability is a collaborative one, and every step forward counts. Stay connected with us for more thought-provoking content and continue to lead the way in sustainable horticulture. Until next time, keep cultivating your passion and commitment to a greener, more eco-friendly world.